How can a champion fall so low, only to rise again with a secret that no one saw coming? The summer sun over Wimbledon was supposed to shine on Carlos Alcaraz's triumph. Instead, it cast a shadow that felt heavier than any loss before. On center court, under the gaze of millions, Jannik Sinner stood tall with the trophy in his hands, while Alcaraz walked away in silence. Cameras zoomed in, hoping for a smile, a wave, maybe even a sign of defiance. But there was nothing. Just a blank stare, lips pressed tight, and a silence that said more than the words ever could. The defeat wasn't just another line in the record books. For the tennis world, it felt like a turning point. The Italian, with his machine-like precision, had finally broken through, and newspapers wasted no time declaring a new era. The age of Sinner has begun. Headlines screamed it across London, New York, and Madrid. For fans of Alcaraz, it was a nightmare. Had the young prodigy already peaked? Was the golden boy of tennis about to become a faded memory, overshadowed by his greatest rival? In the locker room tunnels that day, reporters whispered about what they saw. They described Alcaraz's exit not as the walk of a defeated player, but as something darker, like a man carrying a secret burden. No handshakes with the cameras, no words to the press, no trace of his famous smile. He and his coach, Juan Carlos Ferrero, disappeared almost instantly from the London grounds, vanishing as if they were fleeing from the weight of the world. For Ferrero, a man who once stood as number one himself, the loss was more than painful. It was a warning. He knew that Sinner's fourth Grand Slam was not just a victory, it was a message. The balance of power was shifting, and unless something changed, the bright flame of Alcaraz could be extinguished before its time. Behind closed doors, the mentor and his pupil sat in silence in a dimly lit hotel room. Ferrero didn't need to speak. Alcaraz already knew. A complete rebuild was needed. Not just tactics, not just training. Something deeper. Something that could rewrite the narrative. If Sinner was a machine, then Carlos would need to become something else entirely. Unpredictable, unstoppable, unbreakable. That night, whispers spread across the tennis world. Alcaraz had declined all press events, canceled sponsorship shoots worth millions, and refused public training sessions. For a player who once radiated charm in front of every camera, this sudden silence was terrifying. Was he broken? Was he hiding? Or if he was he preparing something the world wasn't ready for? Nobody knew, not yet. But in the darkness of defeat, a seed was planted, a plan was forming. And soon, the world would discover that the quietest moments often hide the loudest revolutions. What happens when a champion disappears? When the spotlight fades, the endorsements vanish, and even the fans begin to wonder if their hero has lost his will? That was the question burning in the minds of millions, as Carlos Alcaraz seemingly evaporated from the tennis world after Wimbledon. No interviews, no training footage, not a single glimpse of the smile that once lit up every court he stepped on. It was as though he had been swallowed by the shadows. Nay, but behind those shadows, something extraordinary was unfolding. At a remote training facility in Spain, hidden behind iron gates and drawn curtains, a clock ticked relentlessly. On its glowing digital face, two numbers never changed. 15 days. That was the window. The time limit. A military campaign disguised as training. And at the center of it all stood Alcaraz, stripped of distraction, stripped of comfort, and focused on only one thing, reinventing himself to destroy his rival. Ferrero, his coach, laid out 3 commandments. Commandment 1, serve like thunder. At Wimbledon, Sinner had cracked the rhythm of Carlos's serve, turning each game into suffocating pressure. That mistake could never be repeated. And so, hour after hour under the blistering lights, Alcaraz struck serve after serve until the sound echoed like a war drum. Each swing wasn't just practice. It was a promise. Commandment 2, attack fast, win fast. The one who strikes first controls the battle, Ferrero repeated over and over. Carlos was pushed to play with ferocity from the very first shot. No time to wait, no patience to rally. He was trained to pounce, slice low, rush the net, unleash topspin bombs, force his opponent back until there was no oxygen left for recovery. Commandment 3, be unpredictable. Sinner thrived on patterns, on systems, on order. So Carlos had to become chaos itself. Every evening, the team replayed footage of their past battles, pausing at the exact second Alcaraz hesitated. Ferrero would circle the screen. Here, this is where you change. Here, you don't play the expected shot. Here, you surprise him. The days were brutal. Mornings began with weights and sprints, afternoons with tactical drills, evenings with video analysis. No cameras, no fans, only sweat dripping onto the court like raindrops in a storm. Even meals were regulated. Fuel, nothing more. And through it all, Carlos changed. The boyish grin was gone. His eyes grew sharp, his body leaner, his presence colder. Witnesses who managed to catch a fleeting glance described him as a soldier sharpening his blade before battle. Whispers began to leak. A sparring partner muttered to the press, "Carlos is hitting harder than ever. He's different." The word spread like wildfire. On social media, theories multiplied. Was he building a new weapon? Was this silence the calm before a storm? On the 15th day, as the final training session ended, Carlos placed his racket down and for the first time in weeks smiled. Not the playful smile of a carefree youth, but the knowing grin of someone who had walked through fire and emerged steel. Ferrero didn't congratulate him. He only nodded. They both knew. The weapon was ready. And when Alcaraz reappeared in New York, the world gasped. The buzz cut, the calm demeanor, the unshakable focus. He didn't look like a tennis player anymore. He looked like a warrior who had come to conquer. When Carlos Alcaraz stepped onto the courts of the New York, it was as if the world was seeing him for the very first time. Gone was the familiar mop of wavy hair. In its place, a sharp buzz cut, glinting under the stadium lights, making him look less like a boy chasing glory and more like a soldier marching into war. The crowd buzzed with murmurs. What happened to him? He looks different. But it wasn't just the look. It was the aura, the walk, the eyes that no longer carried innocence, but something colder, calmer, more dangerous. Fans who once adored his charisma now whispered about his transformation. Was this still the same Alcaraz? Or had the silence birthed a new creature entirely? The answer came quickly. In the first round, he dismantled his opponent in 3 effortless sets. Not a flicker of doubt crossed his face. In the second, he unleashed serves that shook Arthur Ashe Stadium like thunder. The numbers told the story. Game after game, his serve went unbroken. By the end of the week, he had played 98 service games and lost only 3. 98. It was a statistic so outrageous it felt like code, proof of a secret no one could decipher. And it wasn't just power, it was variety. At times he cut the ball with a wicked slice that skimmed inches above the net, leaving opponents frozen. At other times he surged forward like a fencer, slashing volleys with surgical precision. Then just when everyone thought they'd cracked his rhythm, he spun the ball high into the sky, bouncing it so deep it shoved his rivals almost into the cameraman's row. Every point was a puzzle, every rally a trap. The press called him a sleeping dragon awakened. Commentators admitted they had never seen such transformation in so little time. His coach, Juan Carlos Ferrero, remained stone-faced in the box, arms folded. No applause and no theatrics, just the occasional nod whenever Carlos executed the plan. As the rounds passed, one name kept circling back. Jannik Sinner. The Italian was carving his own ruthless path through the draw. Match after match, he too looked untouchable, his red hair blazing under the lights, his flat shots like bullets tearing across the court. The dream final everyone had whispered about since Wimbledon was suddenly real, looming like a storm on the horizon. And then came the night before the final. Outside, New York's streets shimmered with neon and rain. Inside his hotel room, Carlos sat alone, spinning his racket slowly like a warrior polishing his sword. Ferrero entered quietly, carrying charts, statistics, and pages filled with notes from Sinner's past matches. He placed them on the table and said just one thing. Tomorrow, attack first, never let him breathe. Carlos nodded, his face unreadable. He didn't need more words. Every shot he had practiced, every bead of sweat shed in those 15 days, had led to this. And for the first time he smiled, not with joy, but with the calm grin of a man holding a secret the world was about to witness. Arthur Ashe. Stadium was alive that night. More than 23,000 citoyen fans squeezed into the stands, their voices a thunderous roar, their anticipation so thick it was almost unbearable. The black market ticket prices had quadrupled. People would pay anything just to witness what many called the clash of a new tennis era. Carlos Alcaraz versus Jannik Sinner. From the very first point, it was clear. This was not the Carlos of Wimbledon. He didn't open cautiously, didn't warm into the match. No. He charged the net on the very first rally, slicing the ball low, smashing a volley past Sinner before the Italian could even blink. The stadium erupted. Ferrero in the box gave the slightest nod. The plan had begun. Set 1. It was a storm. Carlos's serve cracked like lightning, and Sinner, usually so composed, looked rattled. Game after game, Alcaraz struck first, leaving no breathing space. 6 games to 2. The crowd gasped. The boy from Wimbledon had been replaced by a warrior forged in fire. Set 2. Sinner fought back. The machine-like precision returned. The flat shots began to pierce the corners, and Carlos faltered, just slightly. A rare break point, converted. Sinner took the set 6-3, raising his fist, his eyes blazing. For a moment, balance returned. Commentators whispered, "Is the plan unraveling?" But Ferrero only smiled, because what came next had been prepared down to the smallest detail. Set 3. Alcaraz unleashed chaos. No rhythm, no patterns. Slice, topspin, drop shot, volley. Every rally was a trap, every exchange a maze. Sinner was forced to chase shadows, running left, right, forward, back, unable to predict the next move. Within 40 minutes it was over. 6-1. The third commandment, be unpredictable, had come alive. Set 4. The tension was unbearable. The scoreline tightened, the rallies grew longer, the audience holding its breath with every swing. At championship point, the stadium fell into silence. Carlos tossed the ball, his body coiled like a spring. And then, bang! A serve like a hammer blow, slicing into the corner. Sinner didn't even move. An ace. Game, set, match, Carlos Alcaraz. He fell to his knees, not in despair this time, but in liberation. Sinner walked to the net, eyes shadowed with both respect and frustration. They embraced, 2 rivals, 2 warriors, but tonight the crown belonged to Carlos. In the press conference afterward, Ferrero finally spoke. Calmly, almost clinically, he revealed it. The 15 days of silence had been a plan, a complete rebuild. Stronger serves, faster attacks, unpredictable tactics. 100%, he said. And suddenly the entire tennis world understood. What they had witnessed was not luck, not a lucky peak in form. It was strategy. It was war. And it had worked. Carlos lifted the trophy high, reclaiming the world #1 ranking, leveling his head-to-head with Sinner at 2 Grand Slam victories each. But as he smiled for the cameras, those who looked closely saw something deeper. It wasn't just joy. It was the knowing grin of a man who held secrets still untold, of a warrior already thinking of the next battle. And across the net, Jannik Sinner's eyes told their own story. He understood now. To beat Carlos, he too would need his own plan, his own silence, his own transformation. The rivalry was no longer a question of who was better. It was a war of preparation, of secrets, of who could outthink, outfight, and outlast the other. So as the cheers died down, one question remained, echoing not just in the stadium, but across the entire tennis world. When the next battle comes, who will truly reign supreme? Now I want to ask you, the viewer, do you believe this was the beginning of Carlos Alcaraz's dynasty, or simply the first chapter in an even greater rivalry with Jannik Sinner? Share your thoughts below. I read every single comment. And if you want to join me as we uncover more untold stories from the world of sport, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell, because the battles ahead are only just beginning.